Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast with Gatorchatter, Kentucky week. And, I started doing these back in the Muschamp days, audio only. And you get real excited and you're fired up for a season. And what happens is the Gators start stinking it up. And so you start to lose motivation. You finally end up quitting. You're like, I'm not doing these anymore. And you'd come back for a year and then take a year off, and because nothing has changed really in 15 years. And when I made the commitment to do these this year, I knew we were probably going to have, almost certainly going to have some of these. And when you come off what we came off of yesterday, you really don't feel like doing it. First of all, you don't feel like talking about it. You certainly don't think anybody else is going to want to talk about it or hear about it. I've been under the weather all week, so my voice might not even be really where it should. It's really it's kind of a pointless podcast, but we've got some diehards, and hopefully there's a brighter future. And people are tuning in because misery loves company. But when you see a game like you saw yesterday, there isn't anything good to say. And we're always taught, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Well, that's I was taught that like everyone else. So because if the players don't care and the administration doesn't care, why should we care? And that's where we are. This Florida team uh, was facing Kentucky, who's a bad team. Keep in mind, Kentucky's a bad team. Until 2 weeks ago, they were winless in the SEC. They managed to squeak by an Auburn team for their first SEC win in a while. That was on the road, and Auburn was so bad that day that they fired Hugh Freeze over it. And Kentucky had lost 10 consecutive home games against SEC opponents. That's how bad they'd been, and Mark Stoops was firmly on the hot seat. I'm not really sure why, because I don't really know who Kentucky expects to get that's really any better than someone like Stoops. But my point is, this was not a good team. But there's been certainly an epidemic in the Napier era, worse than usual, of road game hideousness, where our players just they aren't ready. I don't know, mentally, whatever, to go on the road and play. And you can tell in the first quarter where their minds are, what's going to happen. We wondered if getting Billy Napier out of the building was going to change these guys psychologically. They played pretty well last week against Georgia, should have won the game. And I don't know if that took whatever they had out of them, but what they did yesterday was insulting to all the fans and anyone who's ever given them a time of day. It's just, let's put it this way. It was so bad that Kentucky had four turnovers. Kentucky had four turnovers and still won by 5 touchdowns. I'm not sure what else you could say about that. And remember, these are not kids anymore. We got to protect the children. Protect the children. We can't say anything bad about them. We can't boo them. They're not children anymore. They're paid mercenaries. And so many of those paid mercenaries yesterday didn't want to be there and they didn't want to play. We continued to run DJ Lagway out there, who was continued to remain a turnover machine. 21 interceptions. 21 interceptions this year. Accuracy continues to get worse and worse as his mechanics seem to get worse and worse. And we got to the point where we're thinking it's one of those games that's lost. First half, it was already over. We were thinking, okay, maybe they'll at least sit Lagway down and we'll get to see Tramel Jones. And they did. They did. At least Billy Gonzalez, I'll give him credit for doing something. He doesn't deserve credit for that, but finally somebody sat DJ Lagway down. And Tramel Jones he was average, as you would expect a true freshman to come in. He has obvious talent, and his mechanics are certainly better than Lagway, and he may have a future. We'll see, but the second half really wasn't any better In fact, really, it was worse than the first half. Um, and you find yourself, I had said before the game earlier in the week that if Florida loses to this bad Kentucky team, then they should fire the interim coach too. Can you fire an interim coach? Can you fire Billy Gonzalez? Why not? I mean, just take him out and let's bring a new guy up in his position. We have 3 weeks left of this, and especially Tennessee and Florida State in the year, we really want to win those games. No one's expecting us to come within 30 of Ole Miss this week, especially on the road. But we cannot end the season losing to Florida State. That is the one thing I think. I think that's the last thing any of us care about. I think less and less of us care about a mass exodus when it comes transfer portal time. If some of these players don't want to play, sayonara. I don't know who will be left, but it becomes more and more obvious we need a complete clean out. Players, coaches, everything. Bring in the hazmat suits, disinfect the whole thing. And one thing I was thinking about was, of course, that Scott Strickland, and really that game was kind of a perfect example of where the program is and where the way it's gone downhill. It was symbolic. The game was really symbolic about getting a team like Florida to a point they should never be. And Scott Strickland nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. When Florida's losing, he's gone. He's gone. He's in hiding. He's got a bunker. He's got some kind of bunker, and he goes and hides in it. And I just don't think that's right. I don't think an AD should be able to take a 7-figure salary and then hide from everybody. I think as part of their contract, the athletic director should have to do a weekly press conference, just like the coach. I don't care if it's for 5 minutes. Athletic directors should not be able to hide when times get bad. They should have to answer to the press, just like their extremely highly paid coaches. So I've said what I needed to say. I don't think anybody wanted me to break down the game. I'm going to bring in Jason and see maybe if he has any nice things to say himself. Where are you, Jason? Oh.
Hello. Greetings,
Morning, Jason.
salutations. Yeah, hey. Do I have any good things to say? Well, I don't know. I think there's some silver linings in here, Aaron Bland, but we'll get to them in a little bit. I wanted to rattle off. You brought up Strickland. First of all, we need to stop calling this the Billy Napier era, and we need to start tagging Strickland. I mean, I think all of us, you guys who are watching the show, Aaron, you and I, this is the Strickland era. And here is some legacy. This was a legacy game for a lot of people involved. Certainly for Billy and his staff, Scott Strickland, DJ Lagway. This was a legacy game in here. Why? Why is this so? Are we just overreacting out here? It's the first time that Kentucky has beaten Florida 4 out of 5 on the field since 1948 to 52. Not exactly highlight years for the University of Florida. It was the largest margin of victory since 40-6. This Kentucky in 1950. These are some great numbers up here. Most points Kentucky has scored against Florida since 1974. They scored 41 in that one, 41-24. It was our first 30-point loss to an unranked team since 1970. 1970. These are great numbers. Just breaking ground all over the place. And here, it was Kentucky's first 30-point win versus a conference opponent since 1998. Been a minute in there. Before Scott Strickland became the AD, we were the previous 29 years we were undefeated against Kentucky, 29-0. Since his hiring, we are 5-5 against Kentucky. I mean, there were a lot of good ones out. Those are just the ones I pulled out in there. I mean, it's horrendous, and this is the Scott Strickland legacy that's in there. Total lack of urgency. You called it. It's when you're beating Texas, it's all smiles in the locker room. They make sure you get my good side. But when when there's a scandal with the women's basketball program, when Kevin O'Sullivan gets shuffled off to the middle of the woods with Joe Pesci and his team, Strickland's nowhere to answer for it. And certainly when you go down in flames running up the legacy that you are against UK, Strickland's not going to be anywhere to be found. However, my understanding is his direct deposit still works in there, as well as everybody involved with this fiasco that won't step up to the plate. At least Lagway has to face people, and Billy Gonzalez has to answer questions about it. None of these other clowns need to do it on there. I mean, it's but silver lining. I promise silver linings, Aaron Bland. You're probably wondering, where's the silver lining? You mentioned it already. We go to Ole Miss next week on the road. We're already wanting to show Lane Kiffin that his fans don't care. Now they have even less reason to come out to the game. Florida stinks. I'm going to go shoot a squirrel somewhere in there. That should be Ole Miss fans' thing. Don't come to boo Florida. We stink anyway. Ingenious strategy to make them care even less. And as a double play, Mr. Bland, this is all adding up to Lane Kiffin coming to Florida with the lowest expectations ever at Florida. Look at all that legacy. Billy Napier and Scott Strickland have already cleared the way. I thought that, after losing to Georgia Southern I thought you couldn't get any lower. And maybe as a single moment of time, the spike is still the lowest there in there. But as a sustained level of bandwidth, this is the worst in there. It's all adding up to Lane coming in and being a savior simply by being relevant in there. So there's some silver lining in there, Aaron. If you squint, you can see the glimmer like in the pan. If you're panning for gold out of this absolute Shawshank Redemption-like crap tunnel, maybe you see a little bit of it in there. But otherwise, as John Lovitz once said in the great show, The Critic, it stinks.
Well, some of the diehards in the few remaining diehards in the chat box last night, I don't know how they made it. I missed a few minutes here and there. I couldn't watch. I got into the shower with less than a minute left in the first half, not knowing that gave Lagway time to throw another pick. Evidently, I found out when I got out somehow. Oh. Anyway, they're saying, Lane, this team is such a dumpster fire. Lane Kiffin's just not going to want any part of it. But, of course, that's not how coaches think.
Yeah.
I think a coach might be more likely to come to a dumpster fire because he's not expected to, be an instant champion. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I just think about the remaining 3 games. What team is going to show up for the remaining 3 games? It's impossible to say.
Possible to say, but I will say this. If you're looking at the game, you're saying, God, these look like Billy Napier plays. Well, Ryan O'Hara is still a Billy Napier guy. He's still a Sun Belt built play caller, and he was calling plays on what looked like a Fisher-Price walkie-talkie. I don't know. I heard a Niner in there, I think. And they're just getting all the stink out of there. Why are we messing around with that? He was clearly just going by Billy. These plays are gold. Billy left these to me. In there. Just get all that out of there. It was pathetic out there. I mean, but as much as the offense was terrible, we look at the defense and we wonder what Josh Heupel is going to be able to dial up against them. But, that stronghold, the Tennessee stronghold, hasn't fallen yet. We'll see if the Scott Strickland, Billy Napier wrecking ball can knock that down also. If they do, we're no worse for the wear. We've reset all these things. Sometimes I wonder, Aaron, should we sacrifice the scoring streak as a sacrifice to the football gods just to get us back on track in there? We could have a whole ceremony around it on there. But yeah, the Tennessee, Florida State, I made the mistake in pick them and taking the points, and State, I should have taken a mental health test when I did that in there. They're terrible. That could very well be nobody saw the movie Sergeant Bilko with Steve Martin, but there's a scene where both fighters are throwing the match. They both miss a punch and they both fall down, and it's hilarious. And that's what I see coming up with Florida State and Florida, 2 teams that stink to high heaven. And one of them's just going to get lucky and land a punch and win the game. Terrible.
Jason, maybe what you were seeing from O'Hara in the booth was he was texting with Billy. Billy was texting in the plays.
Hey, you could have. We threw two sideways passes, and we had one called play where we dumped it. We checked down 6 yards short of the line of scrimmage. We were going 30 yards down the field to the slowest man on the roster, Hayden Hansen. I'm pretty sure some of the D linemen can outrun him. No offense, Hayden Hansen. We liked you for like 10. We liked you for like 10 minutes in week one. We liked you then. Not anymore. Trying to needing needing 15 yards. We throw it to Hansen short of the first down line. Like that guy's gonna break a tackle for the first time all season. It was brutal. So yeah, maybe if he should have had a magic 8 ball next to him. Also, that would have been just as effective as whatever he was doing. Come in, over. On the walkie-talkie. Terrible.
Well, we keep talking about low moments. We don't just. I still keep thinking about Florida State. It's going to be even lower if the Noles storm into the swamp and walk out dancing around. That's
Oh yeah,
the only thing left that we care about.
the George Gums revenge game, where they come in. Richie Leonard gonna come in with his old Gator sweatshirt, rip it off, Marcus Stroud style, and plant the Nole flag in the end zone in there. But yeah, it would obviously anytime we lose at the Swamp, to me personally, is a low point. We should never lose at home in there. Unfortunately, we've done it quite a bit. It's probably a stat on that since Strickland's taken over. How much we've lost in the Swamp? It's pathetic in there, but we still show up. Ole Miss are begging. They're in the top 10. They've got the coach that obviously better schools would like, and they still they got to beg them to come to a football game. I mean, that you say whatever you want. Your national champions list is like 2 lines long total across all sports. You may want to pump the brakes, Ole Miss, on being the destination for Lane Kiffin. I don't know, $25 million a year. It keeps going up every week. We stink. And that price tag keeps going. Lane can ask for whatever he wants. He could be A-Rod, or I should bring Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani at this point. Name your price on there, because beyond Lane Kiffin, as we saw, Drinkwitz sucks. That's been the funniest meme. I'll tell you one thing I've learned this week is that Gator Nation is hilarious. Just the amount of humor that can be brought out of darkness is amazing. Everybody, a lot of people on Gatorchatter is on X. Just hilarious in there. But the one thing this week is that everybody hates Drinkwitz. It's a new CBS special. Everybody hates Drinkwitz. And great memes. Even Gator Jen on X. She lawyer, been involved with Gator Victorious, been involved from the very beginning and all that. Even she's posting anti Eli memes out there. Hilarious the way we've come together to push back against that. And they, of course, they suck too. Another team I took the points in this week and lost. Bombed badly. Never go with Eli. Never go with Drinkwitz in there. But, it's the Gator sense of humor has abounded, and hopefully we can keep maintaining that through these last 3 games of the year, get to the offseason.
Well, Jason, it's a different game, as I was saying earlier, with paid mercenaries and players with very little or no loyalty. You never know if a player is dogging it a bit in a situation like this, or with injuries or whatever, if he's just trying to get to the portal and preserve himself. Who knows anymore? There's no loyalty. That's why I've found myself, if I have to root for someone else in the country, rooting for Indiana, because they're the one team that the team left that kind of seems like an actual team. That's
right.
They're not a lot of high recruits. It's like them against the world kind of thing. Whenever all these other teams, then the Ohio States and all this, it's just a huge pile of multi-million-dollar players. Texas Tech, I heard, had put $7 million into their defensive line. What is that? I mean, you can.
Now the Bengals don't even do that in the NFL. That's the Cincinnati Bengals don't spend like that.
You can go buy a championship now. It's openly. It's
right.
I guess maybe you've always been able to do it secretly, as Nick Saban would tell you. But now that it's open, it's wow, it's just not the same game, and there's very little new information on the coaching search. We did hear rumors that Drinkowitz. It's been agreed that Drinkowitz is a little too toxic to hire. I think that might just be wishful thinking.
Right.
It's completely the truth, but I think it might be wishful thinking. But again, if it's not Lane Kiffin, we haven't heard a word on anyone else.
Yeah, that search firm, Aaron. That search firm is very meticulous. In there, they're probably in the labs right now. They probably don't even know what happened yesterday. They're in the labs. They got the goggles on. They're conducting experiments to find who's the best coach for the University of Florida. And I'm sure that's why we haven't heard anything out there. It's not because we're waiting on Lane Kiffin to turn us down or that. At this point, Aaron, in the coaching search, Kiffin should go full LeBron James and have a sit down, the decision conversation where he's sitting up there and instead of saying he's taking his talents to Gainesville or whatever, he rips off an Ole Miss sweatshirt and it's an FSU logo on it. And everybody starts taking, and then he takes that off and it's a big bag of money instead, and so on and so on. I think Lane should make a big production out of it because that's what it is right now. It's what you said. College football is just a big production. And then you might as well milk it for all the troll. He retweeted the Lagway benched for Trammell. He retweeted that out there, out there. Yes, the man knows no ends to his trolling, and it's either going to be glorious that he comes in anyway and takes over Florida, or it's going to be an amazing villain move that he leads aside and then rug pull at the end. I think either one would be hilarious entertainment. It would insult me personally. And then, let's address one more thing because we talked about this last week. We talked about if we don't get Lane Kiffin because the rest of when Finch lost to Wisconsin. Yesterday, Finch. I still call him Finch, the American Pie guy. But Finch lost to Wisconsin, and the other candidates are so bad. We muse that maybe if he would be willing to, that we keep Gonzalez as an interim coach another year. And people mistook that for we think Billy Gonzalez is good enough. No, it's the opposite. We want to make sure everybody knows we're still hiring, even though we go into the next season with an interim. Like we brought up Adazio as a comparison. Nobody thought Steve Adazio was the next head coach at University of Florida. But we thought about that in there. So, I want to make sure that we get that out there again. Nobody believes Billy Gonzalez should be the head coach, full-time head coach at University of Florida. But we don't want to sign a 4-year contract to a stiff to come in and reset this horrible clock all over again. And certainly not on Scott Strickland's watch, Aaron Bland.
I don't know if they don't hire someone at the end of the year. I see a mass exodus. I don't know who we're going to be. I don't know what.
Oh my gosh! All the players that scored 7 points against Kentucky and gave up 38, they're going to leave. Oh my Lord! I'm not sure what I'll do.
Well, heading into a season with the expectations set by the university that you're going to go 2-12 or whatever is probably not good. But I guess your point of putting some terrible coach in there is maybe equally not good or worse. So I think we're just in a bad situation.
I think you're right. I think it's bad. So let's keep the jokes coming, Gator Nation. Let's keep them coming because I think that, and for some of you, a good bottle, we take it, good bottle of alcohol, and I think we'll get through this. We'll come out the other side. This is the Doug Dickey era. I want to hear from some of the folks that were around in the Dickey era. Did it feel like this in the late 70s? Because my grandfather used to tell me it was the low point. He was depressed during that, and he was happy to see Pell, even if it meant a winless season, as he flipped the roster around. I'd love to hear, but we'll get through it. We will get through it, and we'll laugh. We'll laugh until we cry.
Well, that's life. Sometimes you don't have any choice but to laugh.
You don't have any choice.
It's either that or find the highest place and step off. And fortunately, human beings have the ability to laugh instead. So
that's right.
Jason, thank you. I'll see you in a week after Ole Miss. That should be interestingly, maybe a little awkward. I don't know.
I like it.
We'll And this is how weird this Gator team is. Let's face it, that game is probably going to be far closer than it should be because it's not
Maybe.
expected to be.
Right.
They tend to do the opposite of
Yep.
the George Costanza thing. Let's do the
They are.
opposite.
They are the Costanza college football program right now.
Thanks, Jason. See
So
you next
long.
time.
Yep.
All right. For those who survived with us, thank you very much. This was a little bit painful, I know, but we're here for the pain. Gatorchatter is here for the pain. We've always been here for the pain. People avoid property damage because they can vent on Gatorchatter. That's why we've been given the various medals by various law enforcement agencies for cutting down on crime and domestic violence problems. We have been for 11 years now, and I'm very proud of that. If you're actually watching this and liked it, give it a like, give it a subscribe. Let's get couple more subscribers. Why not? Just throw us a bone, even if you don't plan on watching. Thank you, everybody. Let's have a good week. Try not to think about Gator football too much. And see you next time.